So after finishing orthomyxoviruses, next in line is paramyxoviruses. Paramyxoviruses. Okay. So as we know that they are more larger and pleomorphic. More larger and pleomorphic than orthomyxoviruses. They have F-glycoprotein, very important glycoprotein for fusion. Apart from this, we have hemolysins, and then we also have other antigenic structures like hemagglutinins, hemagglutinins, neuraminidase, and G proteins which help in attachment. Okay, so hemagglutinins only, no neuraminidase seen in measles. Okay, HNN seen in parainfluenza and mumps. Okay, so they are more larger than orthomyxoviruses. They possess especially they possess F-glycoprotein by which they cause membrane fusion, and they have on their surface hemagglutinins, okay, like measles, or hemagglutinins and neuraminases like paramyxovirus and mumps virus. And apart from this, they also have G proteins for attachment, which is seen in RSV or respiratory syncytial viruses. Okay, so we will see what all diseases these viruses can cause. Okay, so as far as diseases is concerned, they cause two type of infections. Okay, first is they cause common infections in children, and also they cause zoonotic infections. Okay, so zoonotic infection, so we can also get these infection through animals, and which results in very severe infection like encephalitis, pneumonia and encephalitis. Classical examples are Nipah and Hendra virus. Okay, as far as infections in children is concerned, it can cause either localized infections like RSV or parainfluenza virus infections of the respiratory tract, or it can cause systemic infections which are highly contagious. Okay, so which is classically seen in mumps, measles. Okay, so parainfluenza viruses, they cause either respiratory disease or illness in infections in children, and they also cause zoonotic infections in humans. When it is zoonotic infection in humans, it can cause severe disease like encephalitis caused by Hendra and Nipah viruses, whereas in children it can cause localized milder infection like RSV and parainfluenza virus infections, which may be severe also, and it can cause systemic highly contagious systemic infections which may present with rash also like measles and mumps. So we will see these viruses one by one. So first, parainfluenza virus, which is also known as Sendel virus or hemagglutinating virus of Japan. Okay, there are four types, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, please note most of the respiratory tract infections caused by type 3. So this is most common. Type 1 is mainly responsible for causing laryngotracheobronchitis, classically known as croup. Laryngotracheobronchitis, classically known as croup. which can also be caused by type 2 also, but mainly caused by type 1. So type 1 and type 2 causing croup, whereas other respiratory infections by type 3. And the most common complication is otitis media. Okay, so this is parainfluenza virus. So in parainfluenza viruses, we know the viruses are parainfluenza, new MMR viruses. So new parainfluenza we have done, new for Newcastle disease virus. Disease virus. So just remember a few words about this, that this is known as Ranikhet virus because it is an infection of poultry. So in India it is known as Ranikhet virus. Ranikhet disease of poultry. In India it is known as Ranikhet virus, and because it caused severe infection in poultry in Ranikhet, where we got to slaughter a lot of birds because of this infection. So Newcastle disease virus mainly cause infection in the poultry. Okay, so para over, new over, then MMR, M for measles. So we will start with next parainfluenza virus, that is measles virus. Okay, so as we all know that in measles there are the spikes, only hemagglutinin is present and neuraminidase spike is absent. Neuraminidase spike is absent. Okay, it causes highly infectious disease of childhood. Okay, so cause infection in children, age group is 6 months to 3 to 5 years. Okay, now characteristically presents with typical maculopapular rash. Okay, so next is, because it is a respiratory disease, so the route of transmission is by respiratory route or by aerosols. Route of transmission is aerosols via the respiratory route. Then next is incubation period is 10 to 14 days. Incubation period is 10 to 14 days. And coming to clinical presentation, it can be divided into 3 stages. That is, first is prodromal stage, where we have the fever and all other like Koplik sign. Okay, so prodromal stage. Next is eruptive stage, where we see the classical rash, eruptive stage. And third is post-measles state, where there is a lot of weakness and muscle wasting. Okay, so we will take one by one. In prodromal stage, it is classically characterized by presence of 3 C's. What is classically present respiratory illness? Classically presented by 3 C's, that is cough, coryza and conjunctivitis. Cough, coryza and conjunctivitis, and also we can see Koplik spots, which is seen 2 days before the rash, 2 days before appearance of rash. okay, and the rash starts from the ear and then it goes down, okay. Next, eruptive phase. Eruptive phase is where the rashes come out, okay. So the sequence is, we can see here cough along with cough, coryza, conjunctivitis and fever. So fever, then we see the Koplik spots on fever on 10th day, Koplik spots on 12th day and then rash on 14th day. So this is the sequence. Fever on 10th day, Koplik spots seen on the buccal mucosa on 12th day and rash on 14th day, okay. Then the disease, it will usually resolve, but if not, then it may present with certain complications which I will be coming to that. And then post measles states either full recovery or weakness, muscle wasting resulting in weight loss, and the complications are, that is most common as usual, all respiratory infection, otitis media, then it can cause pneumonia, specially known as giant cell pneumonia or Hatchet cell pneumonia, okay. And another rare complication is SSPE, that is subsclerosing panencephalitis, SSPE, which is a very rare complication. And also we can see GI complication in the form of diarrhea, malnutrition and vitamin A deficiency. So after measles we need to give all these supplement to recover from these weakness, okay. So next is coming to the lab diagnosis. So as with all the viral infection, lab diagnosis, we will start with specimens. So as it is a respiratory, secreted by the respiratory secretions, so the specimens will be nasopharyngeal swab or conjunctival swab or respiratory secretions, or you can take body fluids like blood and urine, okay. So with these you can do viral isolation by culturing this in monkey kidney cell lines using shell vial technique of culture, where rapid growth can be seen and we can detect it by fluorescent detection methods, okay. Also it can be detected by serological methods like ELISA, direct fluorescent detection and neutralization test. And last, most specific and the very fast way, that is specific diagnosis by molecular methods like PCR or polymerase chain reaction for the specific viral diagnosis, okay. Now as we all know that in measles, when we see the cytopathogenic effect is it present with multinucleated giant cells. So this is known as Warthin-Finkeldy cells. Warthin-Finkeldy multinucleated giant cells will be seen in measles. These are known as Warthin-Finkeldy cells, okay. Coming to the prophylaxis, treatment is symptomatic. All the children should be vaccinated against this. So, and the prophylaxis will be given in combined form in the form of MMR. What is MMR? Vaccination for measles, mumps and rubella. For measles, it is a live attenuated vaccine, okay, and given at 9 months, 1 dose subcutaneous with MMR, and the strains are Edmonston, Zagreb strain, Edmonston Zagreb strain, or Schwartz strain, Schwartz or Moreton strain for measles. So this finishes our measles. So para over, new over, first M, next M is for mumps. Okay, so what is mumps? As we all know, it is another common disease of childhood, very common disease of childhood. Okay, so here the virus is having a predilection for glandular or nervous tissue. Predilection for glandular or nervous tissue, which is seen in the form of enlargement of glands and lymph nodes. Okay, enlargement of the salivary glands and lymph nodes. Okay, so we will see mumps most common, and it is in children, it is most common cause of bilateral parotid enlargement. Bilateral parotid enlargement, as parotid is the most common salivary gland involved in mumps, but it can also involve submandibular or sublingual gland. Okay, so it is the most common cause of bilateral parotid enlargement in children. Route of transmission, or it is transmitted through the saliva or aerosols. Saliva or aerosols. Okay. Now, coming to the clinical features. Okay. So, the clinical or subclinical cases, they act as reservoirs there is no carrier. For MMR, these all are applicable, no carrier. Once infection can give lifelong immunity. Incubation period is a bit more than measles, that is in measles it was 10 to 14 days. Here it is 14 to 21 days. Incubation period is 14 to 21 days. Okay. Next is viral shedding is seen 1 week before, and 1 week after parotid enlargement. Okay, so it is seen 1 week before and after parotid enlargement or parotitis, or the onset of parotitis. Okay, so coming to the disease, what it causes is, that is the most common is parotitis. Next is orchitis, meningoencephalitis, and pancreatitis. Okay, so mumps is very important cause of parotitis, which is non-suppurative inflammation of parotid gland, which may involve other glands also like submandibular or sublingual gland, and also it is associated with fever, pain and tenderness of the gland. Okay, so all these can be caused by mumps, that is parotitis, orchitis, meningoencephalitis and pancreatitis. Okay, next is lab diagnosis. So usually when the patient comes, the swelling in the parotid region will give a clue. So it is more of a clinical diagnosis. So it is diagnosed with clinical presentation, and also lab diagnosis can be done by taking the specimens as buccal swab, then saliva, urine, serum, as virus is shed in body fluids, and CSF can also be taken if it is a case of meningoencephalitis. Okay, so here either we can do direct demonstration for virus by fluorescent detection, direct fluorescent detection methods, or we can do viral isolation by various methods using cell lines like primary monkey kidney cell lines, or we can do it by another cell lines like HEP2 cell lines. Okay, and serological diagnosis can be done by the most commonly employed serological method, that is ELISA, and finally specific diagnosis can be done by PCR, which is very fast also, and for prophylaxis we give vaccine, live attenuated vaccine using the strain known as Jarrell Lynn strain. Okay, so this finishes mumps, and last for para new MMR. So last R stand for RSV. Okay, so RSV is most common cause of lower respiratory tract infection and pneumonia in children. Okay, so RSV stands for respiratory syncytial virus. It is the most common cause of lower respiratory tract infection causing bronchiolitis, pneumonia, and in children. Okay, so the incubation period is 3 to 6 days, and the route of infection is respiratory. So the respiratory secretions are infectious, and as we have already discussed that RSV has certain specific proteins like F protein, which helps it in fusion of virus from the host cell membrane, and also cell to cell fusion. So it results in the formation of syncytium. So very classical for RSV infection, that is syncytium formation. Okay, and the treatment, and also we know that it can be differentiated from other parainfluenza virus by absence of there will be no hemagglutinin, neuraminidase, or hemolytic activity. Okay, instead it has F protein or fusion protein which mediate fusion leading for syncytium formation, and there will be no classical other proteins like hemagglutinin, neuraminidase, and hemolytic activity which is seen in other members of parainfluenza virus. For treatment, drug of choice is ribavirin. Ribavirin is drug of choice. Okay, so this finishes our parainfluenza virus infection. And for lab diagnosis of RSV, again we can take the respiratory specimens, that is nasopharyngeal swab or nasal swab, and we can do direct demonstration. It is common for all the viral infection. Direct demonstration by fluorescent method, direct fluorescent antibody detection, or virus isolation. It can be done using HeLa and Hep2 cell lines. And finally, it can be done by serological methods like ELISA. Okay, so this finishes our para-influenza viruses. So picornavirus is over, and then myxoviruses over, including orthomyxovirus and paramyxoviruses.